The discourse around a recently released show on JioHotstar genuinely disturbed me on how deranged that discourse has become about themes that are relevant and need to be spoken about. Chiraiya released on JioHotstar a remake of a Bengali web series starring Divya Datta in the lead role. The reason why there has been an uproar around this 6-episode web series is based on a rumor. A rumor that has been spread by accounts on social media who have a problem with any title that focuses on the plight of women. The rumor that was spread on the internet by these accounts that honestly, please don't mind me saying this, project incel energy, stated that the web series claims that 82% married women experienced having been abused by their own husbands. This is what these accounts claimed that the web series had stated. When I finished the 6-episode web series yesterday, I did not even once see this stat appear either in text or be said by any of the characters in the show. I started to wonder on how this is a classic case of spreading something far enough so that social media users assume it to be the truth. When something is repeated n number of times, coupled with most people never doing their own research on the internet today, it becomes the gospel truth. The only stat that the web series claims, and this was confirmed by the writer of the show under my tweet, is what appears in the conclusion, where the series states that 5.6% of women report being forced or coerced into by their husbands based on a study by the NFHS in 2019-21. This figure of 82% has never been stated by the show in any frame, but was a manner in which a narrative can be set where people do not acknowledge a show whose attempt is to educate the people of this country on basic concepts like consent and the problematic ordeal one may face, specifically in cases of marital, which still in this country is not a punishable offence. The motive of this entire campaign was to dissuade viewers from even watching it, giving it terms like anti-men, anti-the establishment of marriage, and the most absurd use of the word in the last few weeks, propaganda. We have genuinely reached the Kalyug where concepts such as consent are being labelled as propaganda. I can't even begin to tell you how sick the discourse has become around the show on the internet. It becomes a clear sign of what Shan told me once when I sat on his podcast, that the penetration of the internet in this country has been at a far more rapid pace than education, and you can see it with people being offended on a show based on marital. I can't even show you the disturbing memes floating around the internet today where online users have become so desensitized, fueled further by the monetization program of X, where they need to post content for shock value, that they have used the character played by Prasanna Bisht, who gets repeatedly by her husband, as a meme, going further to even use her as a meme template for CSK getting thrashed yesterday. Deep introspection to hone nahi wali, because that means you have to first acknowledge what's wrong with you. So the least I can do is educate and tell you about the show, what it does well, where it falters, and why the uproar against it purely stems from a projection of one's own insecurity that a show provides a mirror to their own problematic thoughts and opinions. Lies perpetuated to label it as propaganda because it's a threat to your own manhood. Or your idea of manhood at least. As I really need to deep dive on several elements of the show, I must tell you that this review will have spoilers. There is absolutely no way that I can get my point across to the best of my ability if I do not speak about every facet properly. It's needed for a show like this that is deeply misunderstood and is often ignored because of the noise, versus anyone actually doing the research themselves. The 6-episode series focuses on Kamlesh, played by Divya Datta, who lives a happy married life with her family. She is not educated like the rest of the family and is happily doing household chores and providing for them when they come from a hard day's work back home. Her brother-in-law, Arun, played by Siddharth Shaw, who does not look like me. I don't want this character to be an addition to my doppelganger list, okay? Anyway, his marriage is arranged, and through this he meets Pooja, played by Prasanna Bisht. After some discussions, the union is accepted, and on their wedding night, despite Pooja communicating to Arun multiple times that she has a fever and does not want to engage in then Arun does not pay attention to her persistent communication of saying no and multiple times. The ordeal that Pooja goes through in the subsequent days due to this horrific night, wanting a safe space to communicate the same to someone so that they can understand her, so that she can take legal action against the husband or simply leave, is where Kamlesh becomes an ally in her life, slowly and steadily understanding what had become normalized and ignored for so many years in the family where she spent decades. How is it that the same Arun who Divya stated could never do anything wrong be such a wild monster? Chiraiya is a necessary but an imperfect tale. I'm not going to sit over here and tell you that this is some impressive and nuanced storytelling, because it has a lot of problems from a creative standpoint. But the sheer outrage on this show on the internet almost makes me feel like this spoon feeding is almost necessary, because the venom against this has spread so fast on the internet that nothing stems from curiosity, education, or empathy. It's only name calling, shaming, and threats. Getting right into it, here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the series so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch Chiraiya on JioHotstar or not. Production value and on-the-nose writing. The film is written by Divi Nidhi Sharma, a writer who has been working on television and the film space for years. I mean, the man has the range of work to work as an additional dialogue writer in Lapata Ladies and be the key contributor to a popular show like Anupama from 2020 to 2024. His experience in television is very clear, not only with the on-the-nose writing but the production value of this series too. It just seems like a glorified TV serial in many instances. It does not take away from the message and storytelling of the series, but there are moments where themes that required nuance are essentially spoon-fed with serial-like theatrics. I'll tell you more about the problems of this show where it lacks nuance later, but I'll tell you examples where the on-the-nose writing will make you roll your eyes rather than get the point across. Divya Datta, when lecturing Pooja initially about the purpose of women in society, tells her that it is at the back of newspapers, making her point by tearing the newspaper and putting it in a mixie for dramatic effect. The integration of themes like the LGBTQI community coming in as allies for Pooja and Kamlesh seemed like ticking boxes rather than an organic part of the screenplay. Cold openings are utilized in the introduction of a few episodes where examples like Mahabharata and Ramayana are given as lessons, and it makes Kamlesh ponder whether the predicament of women has changed after centuries. The series develops its message with great effectiveness in the initial episodes but absolutely falters in its concluding moments. I'll speak more about how it dilutes its ultimate point in the conclusion, but it makes me genuinely think. If the on-the-nose writing can trigger so many people, maybe it's almost necessary when focusing on such sensitive themes. Education and reality. This is a point that I really wanted to shed light on that has become the normalization of strawman arguments in film and show analysis. A strawman argument is a logical fallacy where someone distorts, exaggerates, or misrepresents an opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. Instead of addressing the actual nuanced position, they argue against a weak, fake caricature of it. And the nature of the argument that I see around me is people saying, I am a married woman and this has never happened to me. Of course, this is propaganda. When a story focuses on something that you have not experienced, that does not mean it is not true. When a show like Class focuses on the rich and upper class students in India engaging in alcohol and drug abuse, and you assume it to be based on fiction because you did not grow up around it, it does not mean it does not exist. When you see a movie like Homebound or Dhadak 2, just because you have not seen caste-based discrimination or religious discrimination around you, that does not mean it is not one's reality. We have this odd sense of assuming that we live in this perfect world where any movie or series highlighting our problems as a society is either poverty or agenda driven. And I think it's important to acknowledge that we are an imperfect society and that addressing problems makes one evolve and be better versus be ignorant of things we see around us that is only going to make us stagnate morally, intellectually, and socially. The case of marital being in the forefront of this series, at least in the initial episodes, is extremely disturbing and I believe important to be educated about. Consent is the core of this web series that is as black and white as it can be when engaging with someone physically, and there is no room for debate here. The series highlights the problematic stance that people have who believe that acts of violence cannot be committed within the establishment of marriage. That the moral and legal right of being a husband almost acts as a free pass to do anything is extremely problematic and has been normalized. There are several elements that I believe the series should have shed light on even further to hit its message home, but I'll speak about that after this point. Divya Datta and the cast. The performances of the series cannot be faulted. With the written material offered to them, I think the ensemble cast does more than a competent job. Sanjay Mishra as the patriarch of the family is brilliant. He is the smokescreen that most people assume to be informed and sensitive to the plight of women, merely because of their education, but you realize upon further inspection on how deep-rooted misogyny never really goes. It's the classic case of people assuming that one is informed by merely virtue of the degrees that they hold, which is far from the truth. Faisal Rashid as Kamlesh's husband is brilliant in this series, one of the bright lights in an otherwise dark and disturbing series. I must commend Prasanna Bisht as Pooja to take up this role at such an early stage in her career. Her image is getting warped for the nastiest posts online, but the abuse she endures and the frustration she experiences for no one standing up for her truly makes your heart reach out to her. She becomes a defeated version of her former self, and it's painful to see that journey. Siddharth Shaw as Arjun is a case case of doing what the script demands, genuinely being despicable on screen, but being rather one note, which I will come to the next point. In my opinion, that's the biggest drawback of the show. Divya Datta, however, is the soul of this web series. She is what I believe every person in society should ideally be. A sponge to new ideas, curious and empathetic. She acknowledges the world she grew up in, what became normalized for her, and how she slowly warms up towards Pooja makes you genuinely root for everyone to have such friendships that strive towards understanding each other versus casting judgment. Divya as Kamlesh is genuinely the reason why this series is watchable, as the writing material derails completely in episode 5 and 6, and I'll tell you why. Lack of nuance and ruining its goal in the conclusion. The biggest problem with a character like Arun, played by Siddharth Shaw, is that he is not just an ordinary, privileged, sexist, flawed man. He is a deranged psychopath. And this is in sharp contrast to the green flag that is Kamlesh's husband. They are not a little different. They are opposite ends of the spectrum. This is very lazily explored in the series by stating that Kamlesh's husband was raised by his father, but Arun was raised by Kamlesh, who is herself a product of normalized patriarchy. Hence, Arun as a young kid started believing that he is not only a superior but will get in life whatever he wants. This, in my opinion, is a very surface level understanding of the deeply deranged psychological state of someone like Arun. He has zero remorse. He consistently tortures his wife and abuses her while knowing that he is causing harm. He sees marriage as only a gateway for, but he inflicts pain and gets pleasure consistently. There are signs of privilege and a patriarchal setup in the household, yes, but the reason why Arun has become this monster is, I think, very lazily established. This is in sharp contrast to a nuanced and effective show like Adolescence, where Jamie's psychological state and hatred for women stems from a generation growing up online with influences of the manosphere, with figures like Andrew Tate as role models, where one believes in being in combat with each other, an insular lifestyle of being chronically online affecting your psychology so much that you end up hating everything the opposite represents. This influence, I think, was established better than Arun's influence. If experiences from his formative years as a teenager or the conversations among male friends that had become normalized was explored a little more, I think it would have been way more effective. Lastly, the series really goes on a confusing and rather odd path in its concluding moments. Tinu Anand plays Divya Datta's Nana, who is a lawyer, and advises them to charge the family with a false case of dowry because marital not punishable. Pooja agrees to this because औरत ही हमेशा सही तरीके से क्यों लड़े, which I believe defeats the purpose of what the show was striving for. The show then transitions to become a dark thriller of sorts, where Sanjay Mishra becomes this evil patriarch villain making an effective social commentary, just jumped genres out of nowhere to become a crime thriller. It also transitions to conclude like every other Ayushmann Khurrana movie, where nuanced social themes are concluded with a speech to the public. The odd decision taken upon the advice of the Dadi of the family is that because you can't start a revolution, because, well, your family doesn't support you, you're not economically doing that well, you're not independent, what's best is to stay within the toxic household and ensure that the men repent for their sins. Pooja's solution is that she accepts to reside in the same household as her abusive husband until marital punishable offence, and she puts him behind bars, which is a rather long haul and odd solution to the problem in my opinion. The concluding moments of the show genuinely dampened the overall impact of the message in the initial episodes. What I will not stand by is those who label this series as propaganda. In an era where you want all stories to exist, it's rather rich of users to implore and request JioHotstar to remove this show from their roster. For an environment that allows terrible movies, in my opinion, terrible movies like Kerala Story and Taj Story, why shouldn't this exist as well, to be deciphered, understood, praised or criticized? Just like those movies. The reason why I find the narrative of this series being anti-men also bogus is because it doesn't label all men as monsters. Kamlesh's husband in the series is an anchor of support and empathy that always makes her feel safe, never made her feel guilty for only having a daughter, and loved her come what may. This is why I will never believe that Haq is propaganda, because while it presents the horrors of what Imran Hashmi's character makes Shazia Bano, played by Yami Gautam, undergo, it does not label all Muslim men as monsters, portrayed through Yami's supportive and empathetic father, played by Danish Hussain. The series is a mixed bag in its execution that somewhat derails its message in the concluding moments. moments. But I genuinely believe that spoon feeding such a message almost becomes necessary because I'm shocked that a concept like consent can be considered as something that is agenda driven or propaganda. If a series like Chiraiya wants to impart the message of consent, if a movie like Thappad is propaganda to not slap your wife, and a movie like Mrs. is not to treat your wife like a glorified servant, then I think we need more of such propaganda. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Chiraiya. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle is right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.